The 1973 theatrical release of The Exorcist was a huge influence on the rise of the horror genre because it chilled audiences unlike horror movies ever had before. To moviegoers, possession as a supernatural occurrence somehow feels possible, and the thought of becoming possessed scares us so deeply because the lack or loss of control is at its core. But this goes far beyond the horror genre or the entertainment industry. Anthropologists have found that nearly all cultures, both primitive and modern, believe in spiritual contact. In a sampling of 488 societies, 74% of them believe firmly in evil spirits and spiritual possession. And the recounts of their experiences across those societies were astonishingly consistent. Some of the similarities included the possessed individual periodically going into a trance, speaking with unusual inflection or with extreme emotions that was uncharacteristic for the individual, speaking in languages that the individual didn't know, having insight into knowledge that would be impossible for the individual to have known, having no memory of their behavior after the trance state had subsided. Today, there is evidence to suggest that evil spirits are becoming more commonplace. In 2010, due to a shortage in qualified clergy, a conference was held to train bishops and priests in the prayers and rituals that comprise an exorcism. In 2016, the U.S. was up to 50 public exorcists in the Catholic Church, when only 12 were employed just 10 years prior. In an unorthodox move, the Catholic Church has been hiring licensed psychologists and psychiatrists to help them determine whether a patient is truly possessed by an evil spirit or if they simply have a mental disorder. All religions across the planet allow for evil spirits or demonic possession. Demons are even a central aspect of Buddhist history, though they were more tied to nature than a belief in pure evil. So what are they? It depends on who you ask. Some religions will tell you that they are demons sent to tempt us and corrupt us, keeping us from living a chaste life, so that our souls end up in hell. In others, evil spirits are jinn who are able to enter and possess people, causing maladies and suffering as punishment for having wronged the jinn in some way, or to cause harm for no particular reason. But metaphysics tells us that evil spirits are simply a part of our existence in this 3D, earthbound reality. That although we are multidimensional beings existing at multiple levels of frequency and dimension, we are only able to perceive reality from the 3D perspective by default. This is intentional, and we agreed to this limitation before we were born. Some individuals are extremely connected to the spirit world or to other dimensions and frequencies of reality. For those individuals, they are conduits who can access information, spiritual gifts, or contacts with beings beyond the 3D. How those beings present themselves differ from individual to individual and is primarily based on the individual's disposition or vibrational frequency. Another way to look at this is to understand that everything that exists in this 3D world is vibrating at a particular frequency. Zoom in far enough with a microscope, and even solid objects will appear as oscillating energy. It can easily be said that all of existence is vibrating at different frequencies. So if an individual is connected to the spirit world, and they are vibrating at a frequency that is similar to a multidimensional being's frequency, then they are able to make contact with that multidimensional being through the intention of either party. Because emotions are also frequencies, they dictate our vibration to a great degree. If we are disappointed, frustrated, fearful, ashamed, impatient, or any of the other negative emotions, we vibrate at what has been called by David R. Hawkins as a lower frequency. If we are excited, grateful, hopeful, or loving, then we are vibrating at a higher frequency. Lower frequencies tend to attract more negative multidimensional beings, and high frequencies attract more positive multidimensional beings. So if an individual is suffering from negative emotions and they are connected to the spirit world, they are more likely to interact with negative entities. If they are experiencing mostly positive emotions, they are more likely to interact with positive or helpful entities. Positive entities are more likely to give us encouragement, healing, spiritual gifts, insight, or even mild possession only when we give them permission. Negative entities are more likely to give us pain, uncomfortable physical sensations, negative information, maladies, unwanted possession, more negative emotions, disrupt our sleep or any other aspect of our lives, and they do all of this without our permission. Does that mean that you have to just pretend like you're happy all the time and you won't have negative spirits? Of course not. This goes much deeper. In many cases, more serious issues are the cause. When we have trauma, we store the emotion from the incident, and unless those stored emotions are released, the individual will vibrate at that lower frequency and thusly attract unwanted entities. Depression, PTSD, lack of self-love, basic emotional needs unmet during childhood, low self-esteem, having a victim mindset, the loss of power, parental substance abuse, feelings of abandonment, having a suicidal household member, and physical, emotional, or sexual abuse all contribute to a lower vibrational frequency. So what are negative entities or evil spirits? It all depends on which perspective you subscribe to, the established religions of the world or metaphysics. As a practitioner who has helped hundreds of people overcome negative entity attachments, the metaphysical approach has been the most successful for me. I've seen too often that when particular rituals or rites are performed, they do not have a permanent effect. Even if they work, they usually only work for a short period of time. A completely different approach must be taken to remove entities permanently. Thank you for watching part 1 of the 5-part negative entity series. In part 2, we will discuss self-diagnosis. Do you have a negative entity attachment? And how can you tell?